Hey guys, Bill Allen here. I am in lovely Arvin, California today with my brother. We're going to take a flight later on in my Powerchute. It's Pegasus is the model, Powerchute is the brand, and we're going to be doing a pre-flight inspection today. These machines are very similar. Obviously my pre-flight today is directed specifically for the Powerchute, but it does transfer to other machines. So already today I've checked the gasoline, made sure we've got a full tank. I've checked the tires, make sure they're up to pressure. Very important. I got nipped in the butt one time for not having very air-filled tires. It can slow you down and really mess your day up. So we're going to wander around the plane and check the systems and just see what's doing. Tires are nice and inflated over here. Sherman, if you want to walk up here, the frame right where it meets the wheel is a typical place for stress fractures, so you want to check that also. You want to make sure the steering arms are free and clear. You want to make sure the pulleys are nice and secure. The carabiners, they're all nice. Throttle's working correctly, the primer's working correctly. I already put a new battery, like I always do, in my intercom before every flight. I've already checked the gasoline. We got plenty of gas. We're checking the seat belts right now. I think they're good to go. You want to generally just get a nice look at the airframe. Check out all your nuts and bolts. Make sure everything's secure. Make sure all the hoses are nice and flexible. Make sure your caps are screwed on. Again, you want to check the seat belts in the back and the front. Look at your gas tank. Make sure there's no leaks. Make sure everything looks kosher. These hoses need to be replaced every 2 or 3 years, so you really have to keep an eye on them. Now we're moving towards the back wheel. Everything's good here. The shocks have all been tested. They all look good. Now we move around to the back here. Very important part of the whole pre-flight is the carburetor. Often we'll get dry stress fractures in the carburetor sockets. So you want to give it a nice tug. You want to make sure there's no cracks appearing on either side. I'll come around here, do the same thing over here. Make sure there's no cracks. Make sure it's nice and secured. No leaks. You understand it's going to be a little dirty. You just don't want to see any leaking fluid of any type. Check out all the hoses and cables. Make sure everything's tight. Now this is your 2-stroke oil. It's filled enough. They say to not tighten it too much because these will break, and I've had 2 break on my plane. So I tighten it up, not very finger tight at all, and then I put a piece of gaffer's tape over the side because you don't want to go over the top. It's got a hole there that actually lets the air in. So if you put a piece of tape over like I do, be very careful that you don't.
So that's just oil that drips itself down into the fuel?
Yeah, this is your 2-cycle oil that mixes with the gasoline. But again, you just want to make sure that Rotax hole is open. It's in the very center of the cap. If you want to look up here, another place of stress fractures is often right here in the radiator, right up here where the mounts mount. You always want to check that, and you always want to make sure that you have plenty of radiator fluid. It's very easy for me. I just plug up the overflow reservoir and I let it loose like that, and I can actually feel and see that there's water up to the top. But let's check it anyway. Yep, oh, yeah, we're good to go. Got plenty of fluid. Make sure that's nice and tight. Make sure all your caps are nice and tight, secure. Now we're gonna move to the propeller. You wanna make sure the propeller moves nice and clean. Make sure the starter's not on and there's no funny noises. Also, you wanna check to make sure there's no cracks on the propeller. Just check the back and front of each one nice. After every flight and before every flight, you really want to make sure these are just in pristine shape, and then you want to come by and clean them. A clean propeller will give you a couple hundred extra RPM, so it's very important. The next place I always check is right here at the muffler. This is a very common place to find stress fractures. Once this thing gets heated up, it's very typical that you find a fracture right here. So always check that. Make sure your battery's nice and secure, no loose cables, no corrosion. Again, we're checking all the hoses, all the connections. You want to make sure your spark plug caps are in nice and tight. And this is your key valve oil. You want to make sure that is filled to the max brim. Now we're coming around to the other side of the plane. You want to check both sides and make sure these links are covered by the plastic. Make sure the screws are all tightened down, at least hand tight. Make sure they're all good and clean, and put that piece of plastic over it if you hand it. And
what does that connect to?
This connects to the parachute, so it's pretty important, folks. We like to make sure these carabiners are nice and tight. That could be a disaster if they're not. So coming around here, we're checking all the nuts and bolts and connections. Right here is the primer pump, or rather the louver for the engine. The primer pump's over here, rather. And so the lubricant's working nice and clean. The steering bar's okay, pulley.
What is the louver adjusting that you're looking at? That
adjusting the radiator.
Yeah, let me come in on that.
The actual airflow of the radiator is this louver kit. So you can see that's working.
I'm going to zoom in a little.
Yeah. So that's how we control the air temps, or the engine temps, once we're in the air. So
you govern the amount of airflow going into it?
Yeah, it's very important and easily done. You just got to keep your mind on it. So we're making sure the steering's all good, all the nuts and bolts are good, the engine compartment, all the flight controls are solid, everything's good. The radio, we got the seat belt. Again, checking the front. I want to come back around here and check the links over here, all good and solid. So that's pretty good. I got a checklist here. I rarely see pilots do this when they're flying powered parachutes. It's a good idea to check these, but really you want to know your plane like you know your best friend, and be able to look at it within a couple minutes and understand if things are right and what needs to be looked at or especially tended to. So next video is going to be the chute layout.